What we will focus on this video is how to find the y-intercept of a straight line and how to find the x-intercept of a straight line. So if we have a graph, like a physical graph, then the y-intercept is what is intersecting the y-axis. So if we have this as a straight line, and this point here, the coordinate of this point here will be the y-intercept. And the coordinate of this point here will be the x-intercept. So this will be x-intercept, and this one will be y-intercept. Now, those 2 points have a characteristic, and the characteristic is that one of the coordinates is equal to 0. So when we are looking for the y-intercept, what we see is that x is equal to 0. And when we are looking for the x-intercept, what we look for is y is equal to 0. So this now turns out to be what is the value of y when x is equal to 0 for the y-intercept, and what is the value of x when y is equal to 0. What does that mean mathematically? So graphically is you will just look at the graph and then see what is the y coordinate of point A for the y-intercept and what is the x coordinate of point B for the x-intercept. But how can we find this as the um, graph mathematically? So let's suppose that we have an equation of the line that looks like this. Y is equal to 5x minus 3. On this equation of the line, y is in the vertical axis, x is in the horizontal axis. 5 is the slope, and straight, because this is a specific form, slope y-intercept, is straight from the equation, we can say that y-intercept is -3. So if we like kind of set it down or sort what we know, we can say that slope is +5, y-intercept is -3, and x is in the horizontal, y is on the vertical. So will be something like this. X here, y in the vertical, -3 will be, if this is the point, -3, and then the slope will be +5. 5x minus 3. Okay, so when we have the y-intercept, then when we have the slope y-intercept form of the equation, whatever is the number that is without the x is giving us what is the y-intercept. But how can we find on this equation y is equal to 5x minus 3? Now, how can we find x-intercept? As I said, when we are looking for x-intercept, that means that y of that point is equal to 0. So now this turns out into solving a simple equation as 0, because y coordinate is equal to 0, is 5x minus 3. So now how we solve this is we add 3 in both sides, then 3 is equal to 5x, divide by 5 both sides, then x-intercept, which is the value in which y is equal to 0, is equal to 3 over 5, sorry, 3 over 5. Okay, so this is how we do solve the for the x-intercept and y-intercept. When we have a graph, we just look at the values, and the y-intercept will be in the y-axis. This will be the y-intercept. Point A is y-intercept, and then we just look for the coordinate of that point, and point B will be x-intercept. and mathematically is when we have the equation of the line. So let's suppose that we have now y is equal to negative 3x plus 9. Then whatever is associated with x, or the manipulated variable, or the horizontal axis, is equal to slope, is the same as saying this is the slope, and whatever is free without connection with the x or y is the y-intercept. And the way that we find x-intercept is we solve for x in the equation 0 equals to negative 3x plus 9. So take away 9 in both sides. And then negative 3x is equal to negative 9. Divide by negative 3 both sides. So therefore x, which is the x-intercept, will be equal to positive 3. Okay. Now let's take a look and see how can we calculate the value of x when we know the value of y, and how can we calculate the value of y when we know the value of x. So let's suppose that we have an equation y is equal to 3x minus 2, and we are calculating the value, what is the value of y when x is equal to negative 2. So then what we do in this case is we implement that in math is known as the substitution. So imagine yourself as you are walking over the equation, and then when you have a value for a given variable, then you replace that variable with the corresponding value. So as you walk through the equation, you see a y, which you don't know, you don't have a value, equal sign 3 times x, oops, you have a value for x, that is negative 2. So you replace that x with negative 2. So this will be y equals to 3 times negative 2 minus 2, or negative 6 minus 2, which is equal to negative 8. So now you have a point that has coordinates negative 2 and negative 8 in this particular line. Okay, let's see another one. So let's suppose that we have a displacement time equation that looks like this. 5.2 t minus 8.5. And what we are looking for is what is the displacement when time is equal to 5.3 seconds. So again, the same principle, you will walk, and then as soon as you see a variable that has a value, then you replace that variable with the corresponding value. So you walk through, you see a d, which you don't know what it is, then the equal sign, then 5.2, which by the way is the slope, and then you see a time. So time, now you have a value for it as 5.3 minus 8.5, which by the way is the y-intercept. And then in your calculator, you evaluate it, 8.5. And then you should have a displacement as positive 19.06 meters. So this is how you calculate the value of y when you know the value of x. Now let's move to how can we calculate the value of x when we know the value of y. So if you have an equation y is equal to 2x minus 8, And what you are doing now is you are finding what is the x value, what is the x value when y is equal to, let's suppose, 18. Okay, we will follow the same logic as I said before. So you will imagine yourself as you are walking over the equation, and as soon as you see a variable that has a given value, then you replace that variable with the this variable with the corresponding value, and you solve. So you see a y which is given to be 18, equal sign, and then 2 times x, which you don't know, minus 8. So now the problem is turned into finding or solving x. So add 8 in both sides, then 2x will be equals to 26, divide by 2 both sides, then x will be equals to 13. That means that you will have a point A that coordinates are 13 and 18. Okay? Let's bring this into a context of a question. So let's suppose that we have the displacement is equal to 3.8 times time plus 18.2. And on this case, what we are looking for is what is the value of t, or what time at what time the object is obtaining displacement of 32.4 meters. Now on this equation, 3.8 is the slope, 18.2 is the y-intercept, positive t is in the horizontal, d is on the vertical. But mathematically, what we will do is we will walk over the equation, and when we see a variable, we will replace it with the value. So 32.4 is equal to 3.8t plus 18.2. And now let's solve it. Take away 18.2 in both sides, then 3.8t is equal to 32.4 minus 18.2 is equal to 14.2. And then divide both sides by 3.8, then t will be, divided by 3.8, will be, if we round it, 3.74 seconds. Okay. This is how we find the value of x when we know the value of y, or when we find the value of y when we know the value of x. Now, this is mathematically. Graphically, it is even easier, because when you have, let's suppose that you have a graph x and y that looks like this. And again, for simplicity, we will consider that each of those squares on the graph represents one unit. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So if we are finding the, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So now let's suppose that we are finding what is y for x equal 2. Then what do we do as the first step? We go to x equal 2, and then we go up until, or we go vertically until you reach the graph. As soon as you reach the graph, then you move horizontally to reach the y-axis. So for x equal 2, y will be equal to. So this point here will be 2 and 2. And if I'm asking you through the graph to find what is x for y equals 5, then you will go to y that is equal to 5, and then horizontally you will go parallel with the x-axis, you will go until you reach the graph, and then you will go down and you will find that this value here is about 7.5. So then this point here will be with coordinates x 7.5 and y 5. This is how you work with the equation of the line. So we saw 2 videos, one that you're finding the slope and one that you are calculating, let's say, the unknown value. You always will have one that is known and the other one that you are finding it. You can find it using math, using that principle that you have done even in math, that is the substitution, and I gave you a short version of it. And then you will solve. Or if the graph is given, then you will just read the graph. You will go horizontally when y is given until you reach the graph, and then vertically until you reach the x-axis, and then that will be the value of x. Or if the x is given or the horizontal is given, then you will go vertically until you reach the graph, and then horizontally until you reach the y value. You will read that value, and that will be the y or the y value for that point. Okay, I hope that this makes sense. We will deal with it even in class. So if you have any question, please bring them into class and I will see you there.